Welcome to Howz Yer Stool, the show where we pull up a stool and find out if things are really going. Not just the gigs, not just the music, but what's happening when the amps and lights get turned off. Because if you ask a musician how they're doing, you'll get one answer, but if you check their stool, you might get the truth. I'm your host, Dave Randall, and today I'm sitting down with me. So let's get a stool sample. Okay, well, I'm going to get this little thing underway here. Haven't done this before. It's just me today. I figured I'd take a few minutes and explain how this stool got here. I mean, I have guests on every week, and they talk about their stool and what it's like to sit on it. And enough about that. But I came up with an idea of doing a podcast a little over a year ago, just as a project. Let me be straight up and honest and say I do not have any desire to be an internet personality or whatever. I'm a techie guy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I became a techie guy and how that techie guy found the music guy and how we ended up here. And, So, well, anyway, when I was a little kid, I don't know, I was fascinated by science. I was one of those kids. I wanted to be an astronaut, just growing up in the 60s. And the Apollo program was astronauts were superheroes, and I wanted to be one until it was pointed out to me that I needed 20/20 vision to start, and you needed to be a test pilot for the U.S. Air Force, and since I was Canadian, that wasn't going to happen. It would be another, 30 years before the Canadian Space Agency started recruiting astronauts, so I was past my prime by then. But anyway, as a kid, as I say, I was interested in technology, and one of the ways that manifested itself in my life was just playing music. I was discovering music probably around, I was maybe 6, 7, somewhere in that range, and my older sister Debbie had her record collection, and she moved out west with her boyfriend to be husband at one point. I was around 8 when she moved out. So we had all her records, in fact, all his records there. And a friend of mine used to come over summer afternoons, nothing to do, and we'd pretend we had a radio station and we'd just play tunes. We'd spin records, and but the record player wasn't enough for me. I wanted it louder, so I used to go around to those big garbage collections, once a month or whatever. Whenever they had them, people would throw out kitchen sinks and stereos. And stereos back then were these massive furniture chunks of wood, but they had big speakers in them. So I used to go around TVs, old stereos, whatever, and I'd just take out the speakers, bring them home, and wire them up. And I thought I was making it louder, but I had no idea what impedance was and wiring in parallel or series. I had just two wires. 2 wires had to go from here to there, from there to there. So it probably wasn't the best solution. And so that, all of that. I remember one Christmas I asked my parents for a soldering iron, and up till then I'd been using an old iron from a wood burning kit, which was probably okay, but probably incredibly dangerous. And it was sort of the sign that I wasn't a little kid anymore. I had aspirations and wanted to do things. So I got a soldering iron kit, and then I just experimented putting this, that, and the other thing together. Anyway, moved on, went to high school, Lindsay Place High School, and pretty soon on, I can't remember when, but I started working for what was called the IMO, the Intra Media Office. It's where you went to rent projectors or whatever for the classroom and this, that. It was also where the high school radio station was. And after a couple of years of hanging out, I finally got the opportunity to run the radio station, CFLP, broadcasting all the way to the cafeteria. And that was fun. And then along with that came, doing DJing for the school dances, sock hops in grade 7 and 8, and then just later dances. And it was I just liked it. I was a good student in science and math and all that stuff. Didn't really know where it was going, but I did like the sound aspect of things, even back then, even though I couldn't explain why I did or what drew me to it. But I definitely liked music. Back in those early days, I cut my teeth on the Monkees. And I loved the Monkees back then. But before I even discovered the Beatles, they were great. And then, my sisters had the Magical Mystery Tour album, and I just wanted to soak it all up. My brother-in-law's Mark, his record collection was a bit more eclectic for me, but it is where I did start seeing some more advanced music, Frank Zappa, Steely Dan, many other stuff. He was a big blues fan, so there was Taj Mahal and all kinds of stuff that I still to this day don't really know at all. And but yeah, so that's where we started. I started with playing the records, and then the music. In high school, doing the radio station, and just I fell into like a 70s rock and roll kind of vibe. That was my place, and I liked it, and continued on, and then toward my latter years of high school is when I started getting into guitar just as a hobby, again to kill time. Old guitar in the closet, pulled it out. Had a little booklet, and before you knew it, I was singing She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. And so anyway, well, the music then and the tech sort of merged together in a sense, because acoustic guitars were cool, but electric guitars were way cooler. So it was soon to get some electrical instruments in, and through this time, this is like grade 11, and hanging out with my friends, Tom, Pete, Bruce, non-musician Scott, but other non-musicians. But as musicians, we'd get together and show each other what we'd done and what we were doing. And I remember, way back, we didn't have any recording equipment, but I knew I wanted to get something recorded and like, so we didn't have any money or gear, so I don't even know where I got this stuff from, but I had it wasn't meant for mixing instruments or anything or recording, but we did manage to pull together a system where we could record two guitars at the same time, and it was rocket science. But the thing was, anybody could have recorded two guitars at the same time. Just put a microphone in front of the two guitars and hit record. I clearly was thinking along the lines of multi-track recording, separate individual tracks. I was getting ahead of myself because I sincerely had no idea what I was doing. We were just having fun. And I will remember a session trying to get down. I can't remember what Neil Young song it was, but I remember we worked on that for a few hours in my bedroom, and if we got something down on tape, I have no idea where it is, but that'd be fun to listen to. Anyway, so moving on, high school, graduated high school. I did fine. Got to CJEP and discovered a complete apathy for education at that point. And at this point, I was playing more guitar than ever. I'd really leaned more onto the guitar side of things and more music side of things than tech. And I was done at the radio station. I wasn't DJing or anything like that anymore. So it was just music. And then, before you know it, you're pulling people together to make a band kind of thing. And well, one of the requirements of a band is you need microphones and speakers and an amplifier that you can hear the vocals through. And yeah, I didn't know anybody who owned one, and you could go rent them. So we had to go rent it. And Mike Petrie was the guy. He had a shop down in Lachine, and I don't know what the store was called, but Mike Petrie was one of the sweetest, nicest guys in the world. He saw the full spectrum of us. I mean, he was really one of the only, unless you went way downtown, he was one of the only people out here towards the West End who had music gear, and he'd have musicians coming, begging, and borrowing, and he was always very kind and helped us out, and God bless him. Well, so we started renting gear, and I think that's when I started moving into another level of like professional electronics. I wasn't wiring things together anymore, but I was still really intrigued and fascinated about how it all worked, how it went together, and learned things through those early days, and that served well. Why does the sound distort when I turn this up like this? And so understanding about gain and equalization a bit, your bass and your mids and your highs, and it was all very basic, but that was sort of the next level of learning. And in the early years, we generally had a sound guy working our gigs with us mostly, unless it was a really small room and there was like 0 point to having a sound man. But yeah, Jeff Lewis did sound and lights for us for quite a while. This was back in the 80s. And yeah, he was a fun guy to have around. He's always good for a laugh. Anyway, so moving on, and then towards the end of the 80s, I'd reached a point where basically a shit or get off the pot kind of thing. I didn't feel like music was going to do anything, bring me anywhere, advance. And I mean, honestly, I'm not, it's not anyone's fault in there, not the industry's fault, not whatever, just me. I was impatient. I wanted to, move on. I was becoming an adult. And so I decided to go back to school, and I really just put everything behind me. But what did I go back to school in? Computer science, which I realized in particular after I graduated and started working, how similar computer software programming was to creating music. I used to say this when we were talking about quality control in software. I said, for every engineer, take an algorithm and give it to 10 engineers, and they will program that algorithm 10 different ways. And because there was this sort of license and freedom in how you implemented the instruction set for the computer to do that particular thing. And I found that very... And then beyond that, then you get into, like in music, you do arranging. You write a small part, and then you have another small part, and how do you put those together? Well, that's arranging. Well, in software, that's system integration. And I just love that. I love the designing something to be part of something bigger, and when it fits together properly and everything works just right. That was really rewarding, and as rewarding as it was. Composing music and playing music, and it was like, there, it works. That's fantastic. So through the 90s into the early 2000s up to 2000, I'm gonna say 3 or 4, maybe a little bit later, but the tech industry kind of took a left turn on everybody in the early 2000s, 2001. Of course, there was 9/11. Then after that, there was the dot-com bubble burst. And even though I wasn't directly involved in that, it had a big impact. And though I had gone back to university to get a skill, to get something beneath my belt, something to quote fall back on, because the music thing didn't work. It was later on in life when that industry kind of sort of fell out from under my feet, and I found myself relying on music initially, just as a cathartic outlet for being unemployed sucks big time, and especially with a family. But I found music again, like quite literally again. It had been so many years since I had last really played, and I was out meeting people and playing, and it's kind of like crack, because once you get a taste for it, it draws you back in, and it's really enamoring. Playing music, I don't know, I'm sure there's all kinds of chemicals like dopamine and whatever other brain chemicals happen, but when music happens, for me anyway, it's an exhilarating, some people call it soul fulfilling. I think it's just brain chemistry, but that's the tech guy in me. But whatever it is, it feels freaking fantastic, and I really got into it. Now, coming back around, I was sort of like reapproaching the music scene, and things had changed. Like technology had changed. We were moving into a digital world of music. I had grown up largely on analog gear, and in fact, as I was getting back into music, I was acquiring gear because I hated the idea of renting. So I was, got my first little sound system, and then I built on that, and it was all analog stuff, and that's the world I came from. The 80s, was everything was analog, and then as time went on, started to get into digital, and so I decided to make the leap and get myself a digital mixer. Now, which digital mixer? I really didn't know, and obviously, price and cost were a fundamental importance. So I did my research, and I found that the Behringer X32, and if you're a sound guru or whatever, you're probably going to groan, but I'll tell you that board over there is it's worth its weight in gold. It's very inexpensive. Some people laugh at it because it's got so many colors on it, like all the channels have different colors. It's almost like an arcade game. But I'll tell you, I've worked with other digital boards, and they are gray to black, and everything on every channel looks the same, and it's a huge learning curve to figure out the workflow on those things. So the Behringer board was a little bit easier. This is probably terrible English, but it was an analogy of analog signal processing. There were some new elements, but basically the board had ins and outs, and much like an analog board, you just run the ins and send them to the outs, and that sounds pretty like duh, but this board, truly a digital board. So when I really got into it, it was an all-consuming adventure for me, because I was learning new things, and not just because I had to figure it out, but it was like, oh, this feels so good. Like I really loved school because I loved learning. Like I'm bringing all this stuff in, I'm incorporating it into my own thought processes and my own perspectives and how I go about things. And learning about this board taught me about how digital processing works. And so it was great. I would say though that this board is a full 32 channel input board with a work surface that can control all of that. It's pretty easy to work with, but I can't remember the last time I ran the board as a board. I use software on the computer that connects to the board and can control it infinitely easier than leaning over a board. It's just So Behringer does have what's called the X32 rack, and I I needed this because I needed 32 inputs. I was doing a lot of live sound and I needed to be able to process 32 inputs. And otherwise, I would have had to buy a digital snake for the rack mount because I think it has very, if at all, any very limited mono inputs on the back of it. I think maybe 8 or something. It's designed to be used with a digital snake. And just if you don't, the snake is the part where all the microphone cables get plugged in. And then in the old days, it was one big massive cable carrying copies of those cables to the mixer. But Digital Snake sends it out over a computer cable, Ethernet wire, and it's very simple. It's very lightweight. But again, another, like $2,500 for something like that. So I was all about, keeping the cost down because I'm self-funded. And yeah, so that's the only thing. I have it now. I'm not doing any external gigs, sound or anything like that. I did for quite a few years. I worked the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of the West Island Rib Fest. I did that for 9 years until it changed hands, and then I did it for another 2 years. But this is my first year. I retired, and that kind of catches me up to where'd this stool come from. So I am professionally retired. What is that? INRET. That's my term, INRET. So if you know what an incel is, that's somebody who's involuntarily celibate. Means they can't get a date. I'm not laughing at you. That's what it says. So I'm INRET. I am involuntarily retired. I might have still been working had there been opportunities, but it was just such a slog after all the years that I put in. I was like, I can retire, so I will retire, and that was that. Yeah, so I had, like I said, I had Rib Fest. That was a thing. I was still playing some music, doing sound for other bands in bars and stuff. I'd stepped back a bit after COVID. I stepped back from performing myself, so I was more doing sound stuff, which was very cool. And then I can't remember when, maybe 2 years ago, before I was like officially retired, I brought all my gear home and I started refusing gigs because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do that. But at the same time, I had all this gear here and I didn't exactly know what to do with it. Now, so I have a music studio down here in the basement where I do this podcast, and about, again, going back to that, like, whatever, 12, 14 no, older than that, maybe 16-year-old trying to record 2 guitars on one tape. I'm still fascinated with recording. And so cool thing about that board over there is that it's got a digital interface. So via USB, I can send signals out of the board to my computer. And in my computer, then those signals get plugged into a DAW, and the DAW records it. And in fact, the capabilities of the mixer are probably beyond anything I'll use it. I can send up to 32 independent channels to the DAW. I haven't got it set up that way. It's set up for more personal recording, where I have 16 channels, like vocals, guitars, whatever, can get sent out to the DAW, and the other half of the board, the next 32 channels, are receiving the signals back from the DAW. So when I've previously recorded a track, it'll get sent back there so I can monitor it and lay down the new track. Anyway, I'm not explaining this well at all, but it's cool. It can do it, and I have done some recording with it, and it's fun, and it's great, and it's a lot of fun. But as I said last year, the notion popped into my head that everybody's doing a podcast these days, and I listen to a few, and I do enjoy it. but again, I reiterate, my objective was not to become some kind of internet personality or some sort of go-to guru like Rick Beato. I was thinking, what is the common thread for me through the years from the 1970s to now that has to do with music and my experience in music, and having some conversations with some people I know. I started to think, I know I have a lot of feelings, not all of them great, about music. A lot of great feelings, a lot of great times and memories. But it can be grueling to be a performer and a musician. When you think about it, when you go out to a club and there's a band playing, those folks up there, but you don't know what they do during the day. You don't know they sit behind a desk all day, or they've got 6 kids at home they're taking care of, or whatever their story. But they come out and they play, and they're trying to do their best. And sometimes it goes great, sometimes it doesn't, and you don't always get to control how that turnout happens. And so there's many other things. Rejection. I mean, geez, I think this is sort of a common thread with all artists in all domains of art, that, you're putting yourself out there. You're saying, I'm going to represent how I'm feeling and express it in a way. If you're a painter, you paint. As a musician, you play music, or write and or play music. And when it doesn't go well, it's tough. When somebody comes up to you and you're playing songs that you worked really hard on, and you're proud of how you're doing them, and I mean, I've had it happen to me. I was playing, I'm not going to say even where it was, but I was playing, it was an acoustic gig for me, and I was doing a beloved acoustic song. I can't see what, and this young woman in front of me was like fake slashing her wrists. I guess she wanted me to play Sweet Home Alabama, and I wasn't doing that. And I was floored by that. I thought, you entitled, selfish so-and-so. Like, that was beyond rude, Oddly enough, that person is now out there trying to perform themselves, and God bless them. They've come a long way, and I've seen them and congratulated them. I certainly, it did cross my mind to sit in front of them and pretend to slash my wrist, but I can't do that. But this is the thing. Coming home from a gig, there are nights you come home and you think, fantastic, that was great. I can't wait to go back and do that. There are other nights that you don't feel like that. And if you ever wonder why so many musicians take substances or abuse substances, alcohol, drugs, it's to help pad that feeling inside you, in your heart, in your brain, to sometimes just to put yourself to sleep. And I certainly became a victim to that. I didn't really get into the drug scene, but drink too much and smoke too much, and it's not a great way of life. But then you overcome those things and you look back and wonder, how did that happen? Like, so, as I say, starting out in the 70s and then playing in the 80s, there was no talk of mental health. If you showed signs of, especially as a performer, you had to put on a brave face and go up there and smile and shake your hair around and all that stuff. And even no matter what you're feeling on the inside, and it's just a tough gig. I'm not a mental health professional by any means. I just know what I felt, and I know it's really sucked at times. And even to the extent of this podcast, as it were, I was very fortunate when I finally, as I said, I came up with a year ago, and then it took me a while to, like, what am I going to do? And I had to, like, flesh out the idea. And then when I was ready to pull the trigger on it, I just reached out to a lot of people that I know, that I'd worked with, that I'd done sound for or done something for in one way or another, and asked them all out. And those are the episodes that you can see on the site here. Great people, without hesitation, said, sure, do that. And I have been duly impressed at the honesty and frankness that these people have come to my little sit down with. You know, the title of the podcast is Howz Yer Stool, and yeah, it's a stupid pun on, like, so as musicians we often sit on stools on stage to do our sets, particularly in an acoustic pub whatever setting. And then there's the other, you know, when you go to the doctor and he wants to find out what's really going on, you find out what a stool sample is. But anyway, it's just meant to get inside the musicians. Like, let's a bit more than the cordial, oh, it's nice to see you, thanks for coming out to the gig. It's more the, oh, wow, yeah, it's tough. I haven't made anybody cry yet, but there's always the next one, you know. But that's not my objective either. I don't want people to cry. I want them to feel good. I want them to feel like they're opening up about things that they may not even know. I've been in touch with a number of people who are reticent to come and sit down and talk, feeling like, oh, I don't really have a lot to say. And I'm like, oh, you'd be surprised. So when I started this podcast, I came up, where papers are, oh, they're over there. Like, I don't know, 5-6 pages of segments and questions and so on. And what I found after like doing two of them, I didn't need the paperwork, just the fundamental question, who are you? You know, where were you raised? What's your background? When did you get into music? And I'm telling you, these folks, they just, whether they knew it or not, they had it all inside them. And we talk, and you know, the podcast world says, well, it should be no more than an hour. But yeah, I don't want to cut anybody off. But they all speak very freely, and it's really refreshing that these folks all have something to say. But coming back to this week's episode, I ran out of folks to do the episode, and I thought, no, I in all honesty, I got bummed. I got, oh man, I've only been doing this for like 2 months, and yeah, it's getting hard. It was reminding me of trying to get gigs as a musician, as a performer, trying to get gigs, and you know, again, the whole rejection thing. It's probably a sore point for me, but I'm finding, you know, rejection is a pretty tough pill to swallow for most performers. And so I was feeling this. I'm going, oh, maybe I shouldn't have started this. Maybe I shouldn't. Nobody's really caring. And then I thought, I reminded myself, you started this as a retirement project, a feel-good thing to learn how to do something you never did before, and you're doing that. Whether you have a guest this week or no, I'm doing this now because I had the time, and everything's just sitting here. I just have to hit click and go, and yeah, it's but really it caught me for a second. I was like, oh, these are those ugly feelings. And then when I sort of shook it off, and I said, no, don't worry about it. No one's sitting there with bated breath. You know, there's no bar manager screaming over your back and telling you. I remember this one guy. Again, no names. It was a terrible little venue, but it was a gig, and the owner was an older guy from the old country, and so we went in. The place was usually dead, and you know, except for the people who had their backs to you because they're playing the poker machines at the far end of the room. And so we did a set, even though there was nobody there. We did a set, and then we went to sit down. And then the guy who owned the place came over to me and he goes, David, we have people who are walking in the door. I'm not doing the good accent. I'm just going to, David, people are walking in the door. Like you should jump back up there and show them that there's live music. And I'm like, I'm not the piano man, like, yeah, I have to coordinate these guys and get back up there and make sure it's not, it. And I was, excuse. I was charmed by it in a certain sense, but I thought at the same time, you old fucker, fuck, shut up. Why are you even having bands? I don't know how many times I've asked bar owners that. Why are you even having bands? Like, clearly, you don't want to pay for talent, but I'm digressing. What this was all about was the now, and I am, as I said, it took a beat. I had to take a beat to come to terms, like, none of this matters. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. I've purposely left comments off on all the, well, I think you can still comment on Facebook or whatever, but I like on YouTube and stuff, because I don't know. Just I'm happy. I'm happy with it. My guests have been happy. They listen to their episodes and share it with their friends and family, and they've all reported back that they thought that it went nicely, and that makes me happy, because that's really, when I sit down with the folks here, that's what it's about. It's the catching up, the commiserating, we lived through that, and learning from their experiences. Excuse me. Many things I never did. One of the things talked about with people is being sent to Newfoundland. That was a booking agency, talent management. I don't know what they were. I wasn't a big fan, but their first thing, they get a band in, first thing they do is they pack you off to Newfoundland, staying in Fleabag motels, and if you come back without diphtheria, then you can you can get some gigs locally in Montreal. And I thought, oh, geez, that would have, I don't know, I just would have crushed my soul doing that. I love Newfoundland. Oh my God, I think it's the greatest place in the world. But that slog, playing it late nights, sleeping in literally Fleabag hotels. I heard stories of musicians coming home off the road with fleas, and it's, I don't know. That's not paying your dues. That's just that's just a talent agency or talent booking, whatever you want to call them, making money off your back. And there's better ways to do things now. And I hope to get into some of those discussions. So far, most of the folks I've had on here, and with some intention on my part, most of the folks have been from the 80s. They performed in the 80s, and as I said, we've talked to the notion of how different things are from the 80s to now. The only thing that's not different is the pay. I mean, quite literally, musicians in the 80s were paid $100 a night, and today, 100, maybe 150 if you're really good and you bring out a crowd. But it's not, there's no scale to the compensation for being an artist. You have to love it. You have to love it. A lot of musicians I know are also teachers to pay the bills and keep the lights on, and that's fine. That's great. Teaching is great. I tried it. I couldn't do it. The hardest part for me was keeping the kids motivated to practice, and rather than just showing up and them wanting me to teach them some pop song, which they weren't ready for. But anyway, God bless you, all you music teachers out there, because it's hard. It's hard to there are some kids, you'll get kids and they're just sponges. They're all about the music and they love it. They'll take whatever they can get from you. But there's other kids. It's obviously you're glorified babysitter at that point. So where where does that bring us to? Well, we're getting close to the end. I don't know what I've talked about here, but yeah, I'm doing something I I truly enjoy. I've got all this stuff here, and I'm glad I'm making use of it. There was a concern when I first retired that I'd never come down here and never use this stuff again. Like when I say retire, I mean retire professionally, but also retire from playing in bands and whatnot. And I I I like working alone. I don't. That sounds terrible. I like collaborating with people, but I like working alone because I'm a little picky, a little OCD in terms of like things. I like things to line up. Well, hell, I was a computer scientist, so I'm all about zeros and ones. Everything's got to be right angles, and yeah, that's where my head is at, and that's what I'm doing down here. Wrap it up right about here because that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't really talk about the podcasting business service, how it works. It's really quite simple. I was actually quite intimidated. I'll just finish off with that. As I was quite intimidated. I just didn't. Again, it's for me when I get into something, I go like head first and 20 feet down, and learn on the way back up as I'm trying to breathe. And that's kind of what I did here, is just get into it. But remarkably, it's so easy. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I get no money for doing any of this, but I'll mention a few names. So, excuse me. Buzzsprout. So I did a lot of checking around, and a lot of strong recommendations for Buzzsprout, which is a service. So I record a show. Just you could record a show on your phone. Just dictate into your phone, seal it up, and then you upload it to Buzzsprout. You've already created your account and your podcast name and everything, and they do a fantastic job of managing all of that. So I record it, I upload it, and then I select which. So they provide a web interface for your page, like a personalized web interface. So your episodes are all listed there. And that's usually where I send people. But they also manage your installation on podcast services like Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. I don't know. There's more than a dozen there. I just like click, and selected them all. Personally, I listen to all my podcasts on Spotify. There's no fee for that. I'm paying Buzzsprout. It's not expensive. It's like 25 or $27 a month. And that gives me the storage space. Like they'll store up to so many hours of podcast material per month. And then, it reclocks for the next month. And that's more than enough for me. I try to put out about a 1 hour episode every week. So that's like, 4 hours a month. So it's more than enough. But it's just so easy. Like I said, they manage pushing it out to those other podcast services. And yeah. And what's the other part? I will mention. So we do talk about AI in the show a bit in terms of how it's impacting the artist world, and good, bad, whatever. There's just lots of opinions on it out there. I use ChatGPT. I first downloaded it when it first became available on the iPhone. I downloaded it and just played around with it, and I post far too many AI joke images, particularly political, on my Facebook page. And that's all it was to me at first. But then when I started, bearing down on this notion of a podcast, it helped me so much just to formalize my ideas. I could just type in, an outline, and then it would formalize it into like a document like this, chapters on how to do this episode. Notice I haven't looked at it once, but it helped me think, oh, okay, I can talk about that and flesh this out here and there. And so ChatGPT, so that's like $25 a month. Pro Tools for recording is about $25 a month subscription on that. Yeah, Buzzsprout 25, that's 25. ChatGPT, so 75. What else is there? Not much at all. I'm using retired iPhones to shoot video. As I mentioned, I had 90% of the gear ready. Headphones, mixers, speakers, the whole here setup. The only investments I've made since I started was, hang on a sec. $14.99. This was the Video Factor from Amazon. Love it. I think that's about it. But I have added some gear. The lights I'm using here are old show lights. They probably look like crap, but they're whatever. What else did I get? Well, I guess the biggest investment I made, two big investments recently. So I'm not a video guy. I don't know how to make videos. Video editing is still a bit of a mystery. I mean, luckily there's a really good tool, Resolve by DaVinci. It's free. It's very WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. With minimal knowledge, it's a great little tool to package things up. Of course, it can go into depths of technology that I don't even want to touch because, again, knowing me, I'll just go overboard on it. But anyway, yeah, so doing the video in Resolve. But one thing is, so right now, I got one camera on me. You people are just listening to it. You can always go over to YouTube. There's a Howz Yer Stool channel on YouTube, and video for every episode is posted there. If you want to see what people look like, it's the same content. But when I do a podcast, I have two cameras, one on me, one on the guest. I'd like to add a third. I have all kinds of other ideas, but it's like I only have two hands, and I've got to be interviewing somebody and at least monitoring, the recording. So I can't. But there's places I want to go. So I got a timecode generator to put on Pro Tools, put on each of the cameras. So if I'm doing disparate segments, they're easily pulled together. If you're interested, you can go look up timecode generators. I bought the one from Saramonic. It had the best features that I was interested in. And then the other big investment, which was these microphones. This is a Shure SM7B. I bought two of them. I'm not one to just buy something because everyone else does, but these microphones do sound great. They are ideally designed for voice. Just the dynamics on them, the noise rejection, and so on. And if you see me on this video with this microphone and then you go look at other podcasts, you're going to see 90% of them use these SM7Bs. I had other great studio microphones, high quality dynamic microphones, but they're too good. They pick up everything. They pick up the fan on the central heating system here. They picked up too much, and these are a little bit better. They focus on the voice, and they're not too boomy. And that's about it for today, folks. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I think I know who's going to be on next week's episode, but we will come back with a human being for me to talk to next week. And until then, how's your stool? Mine's okay. And we're going to wrap it at that. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week. Oh, it's La Fête Nationale today here in Quebec, so everybody's out partying and drinking Labatt Blue and whatever, and I'm sitting here in the basement. There you go. But I got my Expos hat on, so I'm a team player. Have a good week, folks. Talk to you later. Well, all right, that's a wrap. Huge thanks to me for pulling up the stool and hanging out. If you liked what you heard, great, because I didn't have anything else for you today. Support local music, go to a show, buy some merch, make some noise. Before we go, one last check-in. How's your stool? I'm Dave Randall. This is Howz Yer Stool. Catch you next time. This has been a Bandit Monterey production.